Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm so excited to do this video, and that is tips on getting into the video games industry. This is something I've been asked about on my Twitch channel often, and I figured why not just make a video. So today I will talk about how I currently got to where I am and what I felt like the most important tips were that helped me get to where I am now. Most of these tips are generally applicable, though they are from my perspective as a games user researcher. So let's get into a little bit about my background in games user research. Currently, I'm a contractor at Microsoft Xbox, and prior to that, I was a contractor at Epic Games. So I've been in the industry for about a year and a half now. My background is in psychology and mass communication. I'm originally from Minnesota, and I went to school at the University of Minnesota there. I initially wanted to become a psychologist, and then in grad school, I kind of realized that my passion is in games. I've always been playing games, and I loved research and I love psychology, so games user research sounded like a natural thing to combine those things. And that brings me to my first tip, which is if you're looking at programs, find a school that's relevant to what you want to do. So for example, what I do is research, so it makes sense that my background is in psychology and research. If you're interested in game design, look for game design schools. Entertainment, arts, and engineering at University of Utah is also another option for that. My point is that there are plenty of options available. You just need to do the research and put in the time to figure out what is a good fit for you. That brings me to my second point. For those of you who are not students or are not interested in going back to school, an option is to get an entry-level job doing QA or quality assurance. This is a very common entry-level position for game developers. That could be another option for you. My third tip, and this is a big one, is do work that's relevant to what you want to do. I cannot stress this enough. So for example, me being a games user researcher, when I was a student in my master's program, I would gain relevant experience to that by working with local indie developers and doing testing and research on their games. So I would seek them out, ask them if I could practice doing research on their games, try to gain UX experience that way, and then put that in my portfolio. Another idea for getting experience is go to a game jam and do that. Build something. People want to see that you can make games. So that's something I did. A couple years back, I made an awesome prototype called Serial Dating with several friends of mine, and it was such a fun experience, and I learned so much from doing this. I cannot stress enough how valuable this opportunity was for me, and I strongly encourage you to do the same as well. If you don't know where to start, look into Global Game Jam. This is something that happens annually, and anyone can take part in this. I strongly encourage you to seek out opportunities like this to gain experience that you can showcase. In addition to doing a game jam, something else I also did for the games user research industry was write a blog post for tips on getting into specifically games user research. I encourage you to think of ways that you can contribute to the areas that you're interested in games. That brings me to the second part of this, which is get a portfolio of some sort. So as I mentioned, I used to work with indie developers that were local to me, and then I would take my research reports that I would make and put them on my own website. I know that might sound daunting at first, but it's really easier than you think to make a blog or website. You want to find a place where you can showcase your work for potential future employers. I felt like that this was invaluable for me and helped me learn so much, and I got feedback from those in the industry on that. It was overall a really good learning experience and growing experience for me. That brings me to my fourth tip, which is to network. This is so important, and anyone in the industry will tell you this, and any industry for that matter. So GDC is super important. It's the biggest industry conference for video games in the world, and it's hosted in San Francisco every year for a week. And this is a great networking opportunity that I cannot stress enough for how important this is. But if you're able to go to GDC or Game Developer Conference, this will be huge for networking opportunities. You might be thinking, this sounds incredibly expensive, how can I do this? I was fortunate enough to go through a local program called Power Leveling through a nonprofit called Glitch in Minnesota. This is a program that pairs you with a guild leader that has relevant interests to what you want to do and helps you navigate GDC, which is gigantic. It can be so overwhelming if you just go without this, so this is such a great opportunity to get your feet wet and see what this industry is all about. I strongly recommend, if you haven't, that you look into GDC or attending next year, and you apply to the powerlifting program through Glitch. I did it back in 2017 and it was such a great experience for me, and I feel like I was able to meet so many people I otherwise would obviously not have been able to meet. So you need to go do that. By the way, through that you do get a free ticket. Unfortunately, you do have to cover other travel expenses such as flying and hotel, but that's okay. There are other cheaper options available, such as hostels, which is what I do pretty much every time I go to San Francisco, even working in the industry now. It's just so much cheaper and it's just better, in my opinion. The free ticket is a $2,000 expense. So that saves you quite a bit of money. Anyway, look into this for next year. Another conference that I've gone to now for several years is the GamesUR Research Summit. So that is specific to what I do, and I encourage you to look into other conferences that are relevant specifically for what you do outside of GDC. GDC is also great for networking, but it would also probably be good for you to find something that is exclusively for what you're wanting to do. My next tip is to be a positive presence on social media. Social media is really good for getting into games and networking, especially Twitter. Twitter is a great way to network and socialize and see what people are talking about in the games industry. But I can't stress enough to be positive, be professional. Think about what your brand, so to say, is looking like when you're interacting with people on these platforms. Don't be posting anything toxic. This is a great way to showcase that you're professional and you care enough to interact and reach out with others in the video games industry, and people will start to remember you. And same goes for any other social media platform. This includes things like Discord, really anything that is public facing for what you do. My sixth tip is to not let yourself get discouraged so easily. I had to work so hard and for so long to get to where I am today and get into the games user research industry. I understand it can be very discouraging at times, but I encourage you to keep going and keep trying and learn from experiences. Rejection is a natural part of the process, and don't let that get you down and stop you from trying. You just gotta take what you can and learn and go forward. And my seventh and final tip is to be yourself and let your personality show. Let people know who you are when you go to these conferences like GDC, or if you're interacting with people on Twitter. Don't be afraid to let who you are show and your interests. This is how people will remember you. Alright you guys, that is it. I hope you found these tips to be really helpful. Please feel free to leave any comments or questions down below, and I will leave any relevant links down in the information section. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.